I'm joined today by Sam Corey, a reporter for the Union. How are you doing today, Sam?
Good. How are you, Cole?
I'm doing good. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah.
So you've been doing a lot of work reporting on the schools this week. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
What can you tell us about the current situation? What does the situation look like for most of our schools?
Yeah. Yeah. So they are in a difficult position right now. The schools, um, so each school district creates their own budget, and they have to look at their revenues, their expenditures, essentially like how much they can spend and what they can do for the year. Because we're in an economic crisis, these school districts are in a really tough place. They are, according to the chief business official from the Nevada County Superintendents of Schools, Darlene Waddle, they should plan for a zero growth sort of model and also for their budgets. And they should also have multiple budgets set out because we don't know so many things. There are unknowns whether another federal stimulus package is coming down, this one specifically for localities and schools. That looks like it won't pass in its current iteration, but maybe a different one could. And then there's questions of what's going to happen on the state level. So recently, the Governor Gavin Newsom, proposed a new budget because of the coronavirus and how much money that's eaten up for the states and how much money they're going to lose because of going into lockdowns. And it's a huge hit for schools. I believe K through 12 education, it's around $9 billion that they would lose. So it deeply impacts these schools, and they have to decide sort of how to move forward, how to navigate next year, where it looks like they're not going to do strictly social distancing again, or the sort of distance learning model, I should say. But we'll do sort of a amalgam of distance learning and staggered scheduling. But that latter part, staggered scheduling, having fewer kids on buses, having fewer kids in classrooms, that costs more money. So they're in a tricky bind trying to figure things out. And right now they're dealing with, okay, like how do we make layoffs? Where are those going to be? And how is it best to move forward in a time of great uncertainty?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think I had seen, the from your article, I think you said that the Grass Valley School District looks like they're set to lose or have a budget shortfall of about $1 million, and the Nevada Joint Union School District looks like they're somewhere in like the $3 million range. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. These schools are losing a lot of money. And by the way, we should couch this in a context of which they were already losing money in the sense that expenditures were going up faster than revenues. And that's not a Nevada County phenomenon. That was a phenomenon across the state. So they were already dealing with this. Nevada Joint Union High School District, before, almost presciently, before this like crisis came in, they were having talks of the quote unquote silent recession of what I just explained, and preparing to keep like losing money and trying to figure out how to keep the ship afloat in that time. Now we've hit a crisis, and so school districts are going to have to tap into the reserves, and the ones that have higher reserves look like they're going to be in a little bit better shape. But like if they, I think it was Nevada Joint Union High School District Superintendent Brett McFadden said, listen, if we tap into all of our reserves next year, and then we'll make like no cuts, but then the following year we won't have any reserves, and then we're going to have to start making cuts. So it's a really tricky position, and it seems like they're trying to create again many different models, many different budget models, um, uh, before they have to make like an ultimate decision of which one to choose.
Gotcha. And so from who you've been talking to, what do the cuts look like, or is there any sort of across the board plan for that, or is it sort of more school district to school district how they're trying to deal with that?
It is. I mean, these budgets are done by the school boards, and done by administrators who work with the school boards, principals, superintendents, what have you. Or I shouldn't say principals, but superintendents. They it does, so it does look different per school district. However, again, Darlene Waddle has a few recommendations that when I talk to administrators, they're like, yeah, these sound really good. They are, first, if you have open positions, just don't fill them. If you can, make cuts of hours before you make full on layoffs. And then when you do have to make layoffs, cut as far away from the classroom as possible. Try not to affect teachers and students like learning that process. You want to keep the classroom intact, so you don't sort of disadvantage kids. You want them to be able to keep learning and growing as they were in any other time. So those are the things that she recommends. And for the most part, school districts, administrators are like, yes, absolutely. We're trying to take those into account. I know some classified employees have already been laid off at certain school districts. Some of that was even before the pandemic hit us. So yeah, those are the general things. But as one of the key things about this, Cole, is that it's not just this, or I should say, it's not just next year that they're worried about. It's future years down the line. How bad are we going to be hurt in 2, 3, 4 years, as opposed to just next year? So those are some of the concerns.
Gotcha. And so have you run into any sort of creative solutions or plans for solutions at this point in general that people are talking about or thinking about?
Yeah, it's such a good question. It's something I ask administrators. I always ask them, like, hey, is there any room for hope here? Is there anything that's better? Listen, I mean, if the federal stimulus package passes, that's really going to help out schools. A lot of them, not all of them, because some of them don't get Title I funding. But it'll help out the schools in a decent way, but they'll still be hurt. It's funny, I did talk to Darlene Waddle about, like any sort of financial instruments that schools can use, anything that they can do to try to help themselves out. I mean, and she said, they're in a bind. In the past, like from the Great Recession, what they learned was furlough days. We can use furlough days, and like that will help us get through. But right now they're in a really tough position, without a whole lot of answers. And administrators are saying, as was in the paper today, Brett McFadden said, "Oh, I can't see the bottom. Like, I don't know how bad this is going to get." And that's kind of what they're walking into. So it's really tricky. And also school districts, unlike the federal government, which can go into debt and, the sky doesn't fall, school districts can't do that. So they really are in a tricky position to try to move forward, stay financially healthy, and also protect their kids and their schools. And so it's tough.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it sounds like in a lot of ways, just like with much of the rest of us, they're in this weird sort of waiting game, trying to see what the large governments are going to do, whether that's the state or at the federal level or anything. Is that true?
Yeah, that's right. And they're all, constantly collaborating. Superintendents across the state are, but also superintendents locally have been constantly talking through this pandemic, trying to figure things out as they go along. I mean, this is not something that any of them have dealt with. This is not something that anyone of them learned about. And that goes with distance learning that had to have been done like fly by night sort of style, within a week's time, if less time. So, a lot of this is totally unprecedented, and, there's certainly some anxiety and stress, but they're working on it. And, I guess more optimistically, Darlene Waddle said, we're gonna, I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but she said, we're going to have schools, like schools will continue. We don't know what this is going to look like, but they will be around. So that's kind of where they're left.
Okay. Well, that's at least somewhat encouraging. And, I think if anybody's going to come up with creative solutions and do something like that, it's going to be our educators that are out there doing it every day, trying to come up with different ways to keep our students engaged and always looking for creative solutions. So,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining me today, Sam.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Cole.